A quorum being present, the meeting of the Richmond Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bridget, our mission statement, please.
At Richmond Community Schools, we provide a quality education that empowers students to be successful in a global community.
Roll call.
Deborah Michon.
I am virtual from Columbus Township, St. Clair County, Michigan.
Angela Pacito.
I am virtual from City of Richmond, Macomb County, Michigan.
I am remote in Casco Township, St. Clair County, Michigan. Kyle Simmons.
I'm virtual, City of Richmond, Macomb County, Michigan.
Danielle Sutton. Danielle, are you there?
I'm here. I am remote in Casco, St. Clair County, Michigan.
Thank you. Margaret Telto.
I am here virtually, Casco Township, St. Clair County, Michigan.
And Sherry Zuby.
I'm joining remotely from Casco Township in St. Clair County, Michigan.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
I am looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Do I have a support for this motion?
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the consent agenda as presented in the attached documentation.
Support.
Thank you. Any discussion, Mr. Walmsley?
For the personnel report, we have a resignation from our boys basketball coach, as well as a couple new hires, Mark Gabowski from transportation and Kinsler. I got another bus driver transportation. Frank Orlando, who I don't believe is on. He will replace the basketball coach. And then Nicole Schaefer is a Title I parapro. Her hire is contingent on the finishing of the application and hiring process from that angle. As far as in the backup, you'll see the recommendation letters from the various administrators overseeing the department. As far as claims and accounts, there were no questions received regarding January's claims and accounts. And as far as board minutes, Margaret brought to our attention, there was an error on the board minute that was in your packet. I think it said Title IV. It should have been Title IX from the last time. We have corrected that. So the official minutes is already corrected. So we would just be looking to approve the minutes. And it's already been uploaded to the website, the corrected version. So.
Thank you.
That's
Any
it.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Brian, bond update, please.
Not much since the last time. We are moving forward with the summer projects. On Monday, February 15th, the portable office room will be moved to the area by the concession stand behind the middle school. And on March 5th, the board office will be closed and we will move over the weekend to that portable area. So between February 15th and March 5th, they will be hooking up the electrical and data lines. Also, we are moving the middle school art room and the Title I room to other areas of the middle school. So beginning March 1st, we can start the demolition and reconstruction of the new office area for the middle school. That will be contained in a classroom, so there won't be any issues for as far as student safety. There will be a letter going out very soon to the community regarding the upcoming asbestos abatement that will be done, particularly over the spring break time period, as we did during when we were virtually shut down. Things are moving ahead. We're finalizing for the big renovation this summer, major renovation. So that's about it.
Thank you. We have our presentations now, instructional spotlight.
Yes.
Ms.
Hello, thank you, Board of Education. I'm going to be presenting tonight on the CTE program here at Richmond. And it was so exciting getting to know the program and the students and the staff. It was really, truly incredible. And I want to highlight some of the great things that are happening here in the district. All right. So here, Richmond Community Schools, our career and technical education. Exactly what is CTE? And career and technical education programs are a sequence of courses that integrates core academic knowledge with technical and occupational knowledge and skills to provide students a pathway to post-secondary education and careers. CTE teaches transferable workplace skills and applied learning context to provide opportunities to explore high demand career options and give students the technology and skills needed for success in adult life. CTE programs help to connect students with high skill, high demand science, technology, arts, medical, engineering, math fields where many great and exciting jobs are awaiting. And we have our 6 career pathways here. And this is for the state of Michigan: arts and communication, business management, marketing and technology, engineering, manufacturing and industrial technology, health science, human science, and natural resources and agri-science. Some exciting facts as I dug into this program was the CTE enrollment. Enrollment has increased by 119 students over the past 5 years, which is very exciting. 3 entire new clusters of programs have been added in the past 5 years, as well as female students entering CTE programs has increased by an incredible 71% in the past 5 years. Such wonderful things to be very proud of. We have some guest teachers here tonight, and as I go through these classes, if the teacher would, you can speak about your classes and some of the great things that are going on. And right now we have Mr. Wagner. He does accounting 1 and 2, business management technology, cybersecurity 1 and 2, marketing 1, 2, and 3, and they're all 1-hour courses.
Thank you. Yeah, you can see the school store there. And just to have a shout out, we are doing our Valentine's Day sale. So nothing says I love you like a McChicken sandwich you can have delivered to your 2nd-hour classroom, or a red pop. Make your pop love with a red pop on Valentine's Day. And as well as some forever plastic roses and some sugar cookies that we are having the culinary arts program make on Thursday to sell and deliver on Friday. So yeah, I actually, with that first chart and graph, it's very nice that I've been at Richmond for 5 years, and the CTE classes have really grown over those last 5 years. So I'll take it. So thanks for spotlighting my classes.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Wagner. And that sounds very delicious. Here are some student voices from the program. I think it's very important to highlight student voice and choice. And here you can see some of the remarkable comments from students from Mr. Wagner's class. And I'll give you a moment to read those over. Next, we have Mr. Olson's class, and I would like to thank Mr. Castle for taking me out here. It was so exciting to see the kids hands-on and doing all of this with this construction equipment. So the AIS Heavy Equipment Operations Repair and Maintenance, it's a 1-year course. The program includes students from Armada as well as Richmond. It's a 2-hour block over 1 year.
Yeah, hey, thanks you for that. It's actually a 2-year course. The students, like this year, for example, we're doing engines and electronics. Next year, we'll do powertrains and hydraulics. So if a student took the course for 2 years, they'd get all 4 major facets done. But I enjoy it. I think the students enjoy it. It's something different. It's a very unique program to Richmond, as in the fact that not a lot of high schools are doing heavy equipment stuff on site at a dealership. So as you can see in the right-hand picture, the kids in the warmer months actually do hands-on operate equipment. We have a big millings pile. So they run excavators, dozers, backhoes, skid loaders, you name it. If it's on our rental line, they get to run it. The left-hand picture there is a picture of the shop. So that's the type of stuff we work on. The kids will normally be in a different shop working on smaller stuff, as in right now we're tearing down engines, and the other class is doing some welding. So I'm really excited. I'm glad I have the kids, and I think it's a good program.
And thank you, Mr. Olson, for corrections. I'd also like to point out that the students really love this class as well. So here are some student voices from the AIS.
And just to add to what Ms. Arrow was saying, it is incredible if you've ever had the opportunity to step out and see some of our Richmond High School students working and operating these heavy machines. It's pretty incredible that AIS trusts our students, and our students are experienced enough to be working these machines that are worth tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and seeing them working it and getting those skills that are easily transferable into the work world immediately upon graduation. So again, thank you to Ed and the AIS family for everything you're doing.
Thank you. And Mrs. Hurd's class, Criminal Justice, 2-hour block over 1 year. And here are some of
I
the.
think I can unmute myself.
Here you are.
I know, it's like it wouldn't unmute me. Well, I don't have as exciting as the other 2 classes, but it has been a wonderful journey since I started. Thanks to Miss Michon that brought me on, and I didn't think I'd last this long, but the students are bringing me back each year, and I have seen an increase in girls joining the class, and we just do a lot of learning about the 3 facets: the police, the courts, and the jail system, and and just anything that has to do with the legal matters, because criminal justice encompasses so much that it's hard to summarize all the facets, but we don't get to do as much as hands-on as I would like right now, but we do a lot through videos and reenactments and things like that. But it's been fun with the students, definitely.
Well, thank you. And the students really enjoy your class as well. I'll let you read some of the voices from Mrs. Hurd's class. And we have Chef Salvatore. He does culinary arts. It's a 1 or 2 year pathway to completion. And I've gotten to go in a few times, and the kids really are excited, and you should ask about his dish wheel that he does, because that's actually really amazing.
Hey, everybody. I think I got myself unmuted. Yep.
Hi, Chef.
So we are just kind of some things that we're currently or just finished up doing. In the pictures you see, we did gingerbread houses just recently with a Valentine's theme. The kids were really bummed because of us being doing the virtual, that they didn't get to do the traditional Christmas gingerbread houses. So we switched it up and did a Valentine's theme. So that's what you see them working on there. But currently we're also working in, we do all sorts of different like facets of the cooking industry. Currently we're working on sandwiches at the moment where the kids are, you know, if they want to make sandwiches, we make our own bread from scratch and, you know, do, excuse me, you know, go at it and try to get as much scratch cooking as possible. So, but overall, you know, we take them through all the different areas of the cooking industry and give them a little bit of experience in each one of those, you know, starting with safety, sanitation, and all that good stuff through all the different areas of baking, pastries, and then the savory styles of cooking. So, and again, you know, like Mr. Wagner mentioned, we'll be doing Valentine's cookies that his students will be doing pre-orders and selling. So teaming up with him in order to keep the kids engaged and make it a little more exciting for them. So.
And one of the other great things that we're able to do with the technology that we've implemented this year is, you know, obviously the CTE courses are primarily hands-on courses and working as you're learning. But with some of our students electing to stay home and be virtual learners through this COVID pandemic, our CTE teachers have been incredible in their ingenuity in working around some of those hurdles. They're working some virtual programs. I know we have some home deliveries of supplies, and really our CTE teachers and students should be commended for their ability and their perseverance to work through this COVID-19. So to all of our CTE teachers here, I'd like to commend you for everything you've done so far.
Here are some comments from the culinary department. Next, we have Mr. Robbins, and it's TV and broadcast media. It's a 2-year completer course, and it's 1-hour class. And there you can see I put in the local 4. That's
Okay, so we've had a lot of challenges this year when it comes to dealing with the pandemic. Just for the space in the studio, we haven't been able to go there, but we've been working around that, utilizing the cameras and cell phones and some software that's cloud-based instead of needing to be installed on a computer. So you would edit through the web browser. My TV and Broadcast Media 2 class is currently working on an ad for the Devil's Den. We're going to put out 60 second, 30 second, 15 second that would go on channel 6 and the Richmond TV YouTube channel, along giving that to Mr. Wagner for whatever purposes he wants to use.
Thank you. And here are some student voices from broadcasting. And we have some celebrations. So our DECA regional finalists, Richmond Community Schools, you know, we have some finalists here. So congratulations to our winners. The students will now advance to the state leadership competition in March, which is very exciting. So we have Cole Churchill and Derek Snyder for sports and entertainment team decision-making finalist, and principles of finance, Nicholas Fistler. We also have our NCTEAA Award winners, which were just celebrated last Friday. We have CTE Outstanding Senior, Nicholas Fistler, as well as the CTE Outstanding Student, Emmanuel Garcia, as well as our partner, AIS, has been celebrated. And I do have.
I think we invited both Manny and Nick. I don't know if they're here this evening. Guys, if you're here, could you pop on camera just so we can see you and congratulate you?
All right.
Yeah, I know Emmanuel was on earlier. I don't know if he lost connection or not, but Nick was absent from school today, so I don't know if he is sick, but I do know they were both very pleased to be recognized.
Yeah, and traditionally, both of the students are, as well as his business partner, are celebrated at a big breakfast down at the MISD every year. But because of the COVID restrictions this year, we did a pre-recorded award ceremony, which actually was just released by Shannon Williams at the ISD yesterday. So we have a copy of that, and we are going to get that up and running here on local TV. And I've talked to Jason.
I will play it right now.
Look at that.
Look at that. Thank you, Mr. Castle. Here we go.
I am James Wagner, Marketing, Finance, and Business Management teacher at Richmond High School. I am proud to represent an amazing group of educators that I have the privilege of teaching with. It is my honor to recognize two outstanding students who have continued to learn and grow through this great school year. The first student from Richmond Community Schools that I would like to recognize is Nicholas Fitzler for his outstanding knowledge in the Finance, Career, and Technical Education program at Richmond High School. Nicholas is currently enrolled as an independent studies student for Accounting 2. If being an independent learner was not hard enough, Nicholas is completing a year and a half worth of material in 1 year due to the adjusted 2020 school year. Nicholas is on track to complete almost double the amount of work for the second year, and he is excelling at it. Outside of the classroom, Nicholas is active as a member of the trap team, marching band, and DECA. He has been recognized for outstanding achievement in math, English, and history courses, as well as making the honor roll each semester. Nicholas has been accepted at Northwood University for the fall of 2021, where he plans to pursue a career in accounting and earn an MBA. With his keen eye for detail and numbers, Nicholas will go far in his accounting pursuit. Next, we would like to bring your attention to Emmanuel Garcia, or Manny as he prefers. If I was told 3 years ago that I would be here recognizing Manny today, I would think you were crazy. However, I am so happy to see that he has found his place in the CTE department and immersed himself in several of the career and technical courses at Richmond Community Schools. Manny has taken courses in the marketing, finance, criminal justice, and business management CTE programs and has excelled in all of them. It has been a pleasure to see Manny grow and mature throughout his high school career and go from a typical student to a leader in the classroom. He often will ask for additional assignments or learning opportunities to enhance his business skills. Manny is an English language learner and is fluent in both Spanish and English. He has used his bilingual skills to help other students in the various CTE programs as well. Manny is still pursuing options for after high school, but is considering training in finance or general business at Macomb Community College. Congratulations to both of our winners. I would now like to introduce Andrew Castle, principal of Richmond High School, to recognize our outstanding business partner for CTE.
Hello, I'm Andy Castle, Richmond High School principal. Richmond Community Schools recognize our outstanding business and industry partner, the Office of the Richmond branch of the AIS Construction Equipment Corporation. In the difficult circumstances that have been handed to us over the last year, the program support, dedication, and willingness to adjust to meet our students' needs in a digital setting have been second to none. From the instructors who have seamlessly transitioned from in-person to a digital learning platform, to the service department who provides technical assistance and job shadowing opportunities to the students. Space to operate the program and provide administrative support, everyone at AIS Richmond branch strives for the students' program and instructor to be successful. Congratulations to all of our winners.
And that concludes the instructional spotlight on CTE. So congratulations and thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. It's a very cool program. I know I was part of a lot of that, and it's really exciting to see that it's still continuing and our numbers are growing. Next up, we have.
Deb, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Mrs. Michon, are we going to be able to ask questions?
If you'd like, I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. I just was wondering, and Ms. Ara, I don't know if you know the answer, Mr. Wagner, but we always, well, I shouldn't say we always, but since Mr. Wagner's been here, we have been sending kids regional state competitions with DECA. How is that working this year with the pandemic? Like how is that process? Usually they go somewhere, you know, to participate. So how's that working this year?
Actually for DECA, we had a virtual competition in December this year. Those were the students that were recognized: Cole Churchill, Derek Snyder, and Nicholas Fissler. So they advanced to the state level from regionals. We also, I just got word today that our school-based enterprise, the Devil's Den, was gold certified or recertified today. So we have my marketing, 2 students worked on a plan and that was submitted and approved. So now 3 students will be presenting that virtually for the state leadership conference, along with the 3 other students will be competing. So it's a virtual format. They're trying to keep it as same as they can, but students are competing through their computer at school.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, Margaret, I can let you know how that worked because I was a judge. What they did was
okay.
they assigned us, as a judge, they assigned us 12 students. We had one person from a school who basically brought them into the room, so to speak. We then interviewed them or asked the questions that we had, and then we scored them, and then we submitted the score sheets back to the teacher that we were working with, and then they then acknowledged the winners. It was really fun and exciting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Wagner. You always do such a tremendous job.
Anybody else have any questions?
I'd just like to point out that February is CTE month, and it has been a commitment of this board and myself to continue building our CTE programs. I still remember the end of July when I first started here, and Deb, you'll probably remember this. We got an audit, a CTE audit, and one of the goals that they had established for us was to increase our female involvement in the CTE program. So through a collaborative effort of the teaching staff, marketing programs, providing opportunities for kids in a variety of programs and fields, we definitely have met that goal and surpassed it. So I want to thank the teachers. They make the program a success. Kids want to be in the program, and oftentimes we have a wait list to get in some of the programs just because we need not enough space. So congratulations and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is the middle school and high school course catalog.
Before Mrs. Airy starts, the catalog that you received in your paper copy, I uploaded a revised one this afternoon. There were some board members who had sent me some stuff, some corrections, some minor stuff. The content did not change, but there were some corrections that were made, so I appreciate the catch on that one. And so I will turn it over now to Renee.
Right, here we go. And so I'm going to simply be scrolling, and I will stop if there is a change that I will give a little bit of commentary. We also have both building administrators here to field questions as well. And then I'll pause and to see if there's any questions before scrolling, okay? We have some name changes and some additions. And of course, all the page numbers will be finalized and corrected upon the final approval. All right, so mathematics grade 5, we wanted to include the fact that in their state standards that they really do have an emphasis on fractions, mixed numbers, and back to improper fractions. And so being able to put that in, as well as expanding on the standard for place value to the thousands. You can see that the language for the grade 6 mathematics was a little bit different here than the other grades. So we wanted to be able to have similar verbiage and continuity of the grades for mathematics. You can see that it's been replaced with, instead of putting the curriculum, it's being put into the standards, because we know curriculum is a tool and we're actually teaching the standard. So it goes into the core and the critical areas the grade 6 will cover. We did have some changes here. Oh.
Wait, I'm sorry. If I didn't pay attention, I apologize. Are we supposed to ask questions when we're at the spot or when you're finished with the middle school?
Like I've been giving a pause to see if there's any questions before I keep scrolling, but feel free to go ahead and ask a question.
Okay. My question is back for the 7th and 8th grade, the algebra 1 and 2. My questions, the prerequisites, it talks about the NWEA, MSTEP, and teacher recommendation. Wasn't there a test, excuse me, a test that the students had to take as well to take this, either one of these classes? And then my other question is, are we still doing that if the students, get into those classes, are they still having to take 7th grade math? Along with the algebra or algebra 2?
Yeah, I can answer that.
Okay.
Based on the NWA score, teacher recommendation, and MSTEP, we do have a algebra 1 readiness test to give us one more data point to predict success for 7th graders for going into it in 7th grade. For 8th grade, there's no such test to go into. Now, the 7th grade math, of the 5 common components in the math curriculum, algebraic thinking and algebraic strategies being one of the 5, the algebra class doesn't cover the other 4 components. So 7th graders who are tested, and 8th graders, 7th graders who are tested on the MSTEP have to be exposed to all 5 of those components. So if they're in just algebra 1, they won't be exposed to the other 4 components, which they're tested on at the end of the 7th grade year. So that is why they take both classes, or can take both classes. The 7th grade class, the mathematics class, everybody takes. The algebra 1 class is to get them on the algebra 1, algebra 2 calculus track that your more advanced kids in high school take.
Okay, so they don't have to take the 7th grade math class with it. If they don't want to, they don't have to. It's not required.
They have, everybody takes the 7th grade math class. The optional one is the algebra 1 class. So if they're going to qualify for the algebra 1 class, they're committing to 2 math classes.
Got it. Okay.
I have a question, just out of curiosity, being new, and the fact that I'm a math teacher, I'm looking at this and floored that we have 7th graders in algebra 1 and 8th graders in algebra 2. What kind of numbers do we have for that? Because I have an 8th grader right now who's in advanced math and he's in algebra 1.
Right. Well, when we went to the Common Core state standards, what we used to do with our advanced track was we started 6th graders in pre-algebra. And when it went to the Common Core standards, the 5 components, for whatever reason, and this is a different debate or topic, but K-8 math talks about the 5 components, and it's the Common Core state standards. And it's really the Michigan standards, which are a little bit different than the Common Core. You know, it's the Michigan standards, which are heavily the Common Core. But anyways, they K-8 went to those 5 components of mathematics. Then some 8th grades and definitely 9th grade on, it's your traditional algebra-based math track. So to have an advanced program, we experimented, if you will, with having our brightest and best students starting in 7th grade take Algebra 1. And the numbers, it fluctuates from year to year because you have, different ability group numbers of groups with classes, but I would say it's around 25 kids in the Algebra 1 as 7th graders. And then we do have, and there's no harm in it, and there's no loss. We do have a handful that repeat it, that don't get the grasp of it in 7th grade. Because being involved in mathematics, the mind in the middle school is a little young for to grasp algebra.
I can't imagine 8th graders taking Algebra 2. I've taught Algebra 2 for 16 years. I can't imagine having an 8th grader in my class. Like, that sounds crazy.
Right. They've done, our teachers have done a great job, and
That's awesome.
we follow the math, the math curriculum and it's run the same way, the 80-20. It's not standard based. It's run, the same way the high schools runs. But we do have a handful of kids, like I said, from 7th to 8th to repeat Algebra 1 to get a better base. And a few, not a lot, but a few will redo Algebra 2. But we've been pretty successful. The graduating class in college, and I think I used him as an example before, but Jacob Schmidt, who is either graduating at Yale or graduated from Yale University, was our first class of kids that did the pre-algebra in 6th grade. And then shortly after that, we did the 7th grade. And they are pretty impressive, and they've held their own, and they start taking college classes by the time they're juniors.
That's awesome.
We had some updates to the grade 5 science. You can see that water has been added, and just talking about those kind of interactions, specifically with the Great Lakes, as well as that they're going to be experimenting specifically using the engineering design process, which is a whole nother set of science standards for the engineering portion, which I'm really glad was included. We have some changes for the electives. Instead of going 1 day per week, the 7 to 8 week blocks, doing that for several reasons. The pandemic, obviously, and cohorting students is a safer practice, as well as when you think about the time that students are able to spend in a class, you build stronger relationships with the peers, with their teachers, as well as being able to go deeper in the content, which is truly the reasoning behind that. We have some new courses as far as art being split up to specifically grade 7 art, grade 8 art, and some new classes. And this one's very exciting, Animation Studio. Can't wait to get some student surveys and being able to capture some of the good stuff that's going to happen here. Very exciting for our students. There's also been an expansion for two-dimensional art 2 for the 7th graders that would like to continue for grade 8. They're able to do so. And then an addition of 3-dimensional art 2 for, once again, those 7th or 8th graders that are interested in the arts. we made the changes here that this is for the serious art student because it does count as high school art credit, which is very exciting. So we are going to offer that to grade 8 students. And we've already talked about the design for the blocks. And then once again, we're going to add a course here for the computer programming for grade 7 or grade 8. And then the computer programming 2 will be for the students that have completed this course.
I just would like to comment that I'm glad to see we're starting the programming. I know that is something that with the robotics, we would like to see and start this develop. So I hope as we look down the road, I'd like to see us offer something at the high school level. Thank you.
Thanks. Once again, the making all the electives in the 7 or 8 week blocks. Same thing with physical education. We are going to do a name change here. Kind of a funny reason. I guess there was the misconception that students thought that they were enrolling in a tech class that was going to do some sports stuff with technology. So we wanted to really be a little bit more careful of the class name so the students understood that they were going to be learning about collaborative sports and not technical sports. And then once again, the STEAM courses will be 7 to 8 week blocks.
Ms. Ara, I have questions for STEAM.
Okay.
We're in year 3 of our K4, our second year of K5, and to kind of piggyback a little bit of towards what Deb said a few minutes ago, when we added the K4, K5 and all that, the idea or the hope was that we were going to have a K-12 STEAM/robotics program. So I guess I'm just wondering where's 6, 7, 8? And as a board, I don't know that we've ever seen a curriculum for our K4 or K5. So are we going to be able to see something? What are we doing with it? And then how is it going to roll into the high school? I know that there are some high schools, and Deb, you maybe know a little bit more, but they actually have robotics class, where they're working on their stuff during the school day, as opposed to us having our kids just get a half a credit for being part of the robotics team. So my thought is here, we're another year of, I don't really think we're moving forward enough to get ourselves a K-12 program. So I guess I'm just asking about it.
Well, yeah, I can answer that for Miss Ara as she just joined us. We do have a K-12 program. We don't have a K-12 program with curriculum, but we do have a 12K program. We do have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade robotics with the club and the team. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes to have STEAM. We would love to run, and of course that would be, if you had 3 sections, that would be more FTE added to the building. But if that's something the board certainly would like us to bring and pay for, we'd be more than happy to have it. And as far as the curriculum, the K4 and the K5, Miss R and I, in our meetings not only our group meeting with principals, but our one-on-ones. We will be looking at our all of our specials curriculum as the transition from elementary to middle school, making sure that it flows. What they're learning in the elementary continues on with what we're doing, and then it continues on in the high school. So that is on our to-do list in the next several months.
Yes, and I would like to also add that this is part of my personal educational background. I worked with the Clark County School District Arts Integration, CADRA, for several years, and even did some curriculum writing in Washington, D.C. This is something I'm very passionate about, and I can't wait to be able to dive deeper into this and look at some ways to be able to strengthen this program here at Richmond.
Thank you.
And I'm scrolling. Okay, looks like we are now at the high school. Let me go back up. Yep, we are now at the high school. Do I have any questions for middle school before I transition? Okay. We do have a new platform for what it's replacing career cruising. It's now going to be Zello, which is going to be the platform for the educational development plans for 7th through 12th grade. And you can see the change here. Once again, Zello.
My school also currently uses Zello, and we switched over. This is our second year, and I like it a lot better than Career Cruising. So that was probably a really good choice to switch over there. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, I've heard really, positive things so far about it.
Just to remind the board, Zelle is a countywide effort here that all Macomb schools are moving towards. So it's been a training and a phase out process over the last, I believe it's been 2 years. I think it might have been Mr. Castle's first year that they launched it officially.
Yeah, they started with a pilot program with several schools, and now they've gone countywide. We actually have a meeting tomorrow morning on Zoom to get an update on how each district is doing. So I'll be able to provide some more feedback at the next meeting if that's needed.
We are going to be eliminating the fees, part of the photography 1, 2, and AP art. You will see when we get to the budget that has been incorporated, those fees. Students should be able to take any class that they want and not have to worry about a fee for the course. And that's something that we're gonna do.
This is part of the move that the board did, I believe it was about 3 years ago, where we gave line items for various departments. I don't have a reason, but these departments were not given line items. So we felt that to go along that same philosophy, we looked at the dollars. So in the amendment that you're going to see in a few minutes, and actually in the backup document, you'll see as Renee said, there will be line items to eliminate the fees for those courses to allow all kids to participate and not have that burden.
Once again, eliminating the fee for AP art.
Miss Ara, I have some questions.
Oh, okay.
At the culinary arts, there's 2 classes. They both say, is one supposed to be like culinary 1, other culinary, because it looks to me like they both say the exact same thing.
Sure, Mrs. Tautel, I can speak to that. What it is
Okay.
there's two 2-hour blocks that are 1-year completers, and then there's
Okay.
one 1-hour block that is a 2-year completer. And that was designed in order to not only accommodate the schedules, but more importantly for the student schedules for those kids that wanted to take culinary arts but couldn't afford or didn't want to fit that 2-hour block into their schedule. So right now, Chef Salvatore has a 6-hour that is a year 2 kids. So it offers that extra opportunity for those kids to take that course.
And
But
then
yes,
are the
it's
year
same content.
are the year 2 kids the restaurant kids, or are both classes restaurant kids?
They're both could be conceivably. I mean,
Okay.
they're all in the same spot in the curriculum essentially.
Think of it this way, if I'm in a 2-hour block, I get to the restaurant, I'm being very simplistic, second semester. If I'm in a 1-hour block, I get to the restaurant the second year.
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot
Again,
of those. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Walmsley, go ahead.
No, as we launched the program at the beginning, there were we tried, a 2-hour block, but then we had students who really wanted to be in it, but they couldn't afford the 2-hour blocks in their schedule. Or the 1-hour block has its challenges because once you get started with something, you're cleaning up. And so we've kind of come up with a happy middle ground with those students and building it for their schedule. So that's why it's listed there twice, so that we can accommodate as many students' schedules as possible.
Okay. And the reason we don't want 9th graders to be able to do it?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? I heard the very end of your question.
All right, sorry. The reason that 9th graders aren't able to take the class.
You know, we wanted our 9th graders to primarily focus on the cores first. I think moving forward, and I think that was probably designed because we're thinking that they would be committing to 2 hours in their schedule as opposed to that 1-hour block. It's certainly something that we could probably fit into their schedule if it's something that the board wanted to explore moving forward. In my recommendation would be to have them strictly limited to that 1-hour section, just because I don't want to see a 9th grader fall behind perhaps, or lose an opportunity for further electives because they chose to take that 2-hour block as a freshman. But that's certainly something I can explore with Ms. Leapak and Ms. Era if the board would like to explore that.
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
If I
of
may,
the kid.
Margaret, I might be able to answer that question for you. Many appliances and things in the kitchen, you have to be 16 to use by law. So I'm not sure if some of the knives and some of the equipment that might be used in, the class may not be suitable for 9th graders according to state law or county law. So.
Well, the reality to that though is 10th graders aren't 16 either. So if that's
Correct.
That's true, then 10th
If
graders
they're
shouldn't be able to
starting,
take the class.
or doing the waitress or the service side or the, cleanup or some of the prep work. Correct. I agree.
So I will talk to Chef Salvatore, who is the expert as far as all the regulations, and I will make sure I get back.
You might know if there's some laws keeping us from aged students, because I do agree. I think that many 9th graders would love to be interested or would be interested, but.
Yeah, it could be a career idea for them as 9th graders, that's the direction they want to go.
I would certainly like if my 9th grader would cook more. I'll tell you that much.
I could interject here. When we started this program, one of the things, as Mr. Castle said, the freshmen pretty much have a full schedule of required classes. So it was really hard to put that into their schedule. We were trying to get all of their main core classes all in place that freshman year. I also, if you could check, Mr. Castle, they do take the Safe Serve test.
Correct.
That was my next question.
Yeah, I don't know, and I trying to remember, is there a time or an age requirement on that?
Yeah, they take that Safe Serve test. Usually they try to get it in right before Halloween of that first year in the 2-year block. Correct. So I will take all of these questions to Chef Salvatore, and I will make sure that Mr. Walmsley gets those answers to pass along to the board.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, hold on, Miss Ara. Did I miss, as you scrolled through, did I miss the EMT class? And if I did, I'm just asking, I know we had not run that this year because of the budget and because the numbers weren't there. So we're putting it back in, hoping that we'll have kids interested.
If there's a need for it and the students have an interest in it and we have the person to be able to do so, it is our intention to run it. But with COVID and the unknown, we're not really quite sure.
The budget and the numbers, we did not have the numbers to run it last year. So if we can get the numbers, our intent would be to run it and partner again with the Richmond Lennox EMS and have that conversation. After so many years, and I don't remember when we don't run a CT course, we got to start the process all over again because we got close to that with the criminal justice before we hired Mrs. Hurd. So our intent is to put it in keep it in the catalog. If we can get kids to run it, our plan would be to build on the FY22 budget with an allocation to run the EMT program.
And I've been in contact with the New Haven High School Administration and Counseling Department, and they are interested in reconnecting with our partnership to bring the New Haven kids over. And that brought a substantial amount of students to our EMT program last time we ran it. So hopefully we're able to get that program up running again and thriving in the very near future.
What is the number? What is the amount of students that you would want to run it?
There is no magic number. It's a collection of all the courses based on the FTE that we're given. So if as an organization at the high school, we're looking at, and I'm just making this number, 25 FTEs, we sit through the scheduling process and start looking, okay, how many sections does that entail? And how many sections do we run of different areas? So, if it's an AP course, they might be running lower. An EMT might be running lower based on the need of the program. There's no one number for any course. We look at the totality of what's being offered and what the interest of kids are. Because like an ENT program in particular, if you're going to run it, you got to be able to commit to it for year 2. And typically in CTE programs, really any type of program, you absorb a loss of students either throughout the year because either they move to decide this isn't what they want, so they change at semester, or they don't finish the year 2 course of it. So we got to look at what is that number that we're willing to withstand for that year 2. And again, we got to see what the initial interest is. We've run it as low as our last year. We ran it as low as I believe 3 or 4 students in the year 2 part. In the year 1, we might have started off with 15 kids. So we ran it, but when you get to year 2, you might not have the same number of students running in year 2. So.
Yeah, Sherry, I think in specifics to the EMT program, I think the classroom setup over there, it's a smaller setup. There's a lot more hands-on and a lot of safety things going on there. So again, that's going to be a smaller number. I think that classroom's capacity is somewhere around 15, as opposed to a traditional classroom.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Miss Ara. This is just a general question. The Pankow classes, and again, Deb kind of mentioned the computer classes at the high school, and I guess I just always look at this and it makes me kind of crazy that we send our kids out for these computer. If we don't have anybody on staff. And I know it's hiring another teacher and all of that stuff, but if the interest is there, and if we want to build that kind of stuff here at Richmond, I would much rather see us have those classes here than sending our kids down the road to Pankow.
That's exactly the process that we do when we do the initial first round of scheduling requests. And that's actually how culinary started. Was we actually started looking at the numbers, and I don't know the exact number, but we had a lot of kids wanting culinary, and they might have given us 4 slots. And so we were turning kids away. So that was the conversation years ago about, we've got the interest there. So if we had an interest, and I'll just use the example here, if we have the interest of kids in the C+ program in gaming design, that will be something that we can start looking at bringing back in-house. We have reduced the amount of courses that students are offered at Pankow over the last several years, because we want to keep them here, and we brought programs back here. So that's exactly the first, what happens that first round when we get the initial schedule. What are students' first requests that they really want to get into? And that's where Renee, Andy, and Sheila, Mrs. Leapak, and I will sit down and say, okay, let's look at numbers. Where are we at?
So you're saying that if
for me personally, I believe every school district should have a teacher cadet program. That is going to be a shortage in the very near future of qualified people going into the educational profession. And I think we should be having our best teachers. The challenge is some of the guidelines that the state require a secondary cert person in that program, which we currently do not have. So there are some options that we can look at, but that's definitely what we do, is we look at the numbers and see where can we pull it back in-house rather than basically give the FTE to Lance Cruz.
So you're saying that if there were interest, then we would look at trying to keep it here rather than sending them to Pankow.
Yes.
If the interest is here.
That's the intent, is to keep the interest and grow it here.
Okay.
And we've been pretty successful over the last couple of years, because that list, like I said, if you looked at this catalog, probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, there was a lot more Pankow classes on that list to be offered.
Right.
You know, I'd rather it be Richmond teachers.
Yeah, Mr. Walms, I don't quote me on this, but I believe we had less than a half dozen of our students that went to Pankow last year. It was very minimal.
Margaret, I can tell you, we used to have like 125 to 150 kids going to Pankow. So the numbers have come down considerably.
I'd like it to be 0.
We're working on it.
I believe with these higher level math and science courses, we were able to accomplish that with some of our programs that we were sending to another district.
Yep, absolutely.
Here we have the English department changes. So very similar to what kind of like the discussion was, we noticed the students for ELA electives, they're choosing it, but it's not quite enough to run the full course. So instead of eliminating courses and thinking of it that way, we're trying to streamline the options so that hopefully we have enough to run it, so the kids can still explore electives in the ELA department as they are initially showing interest. So we'd like to run the creative writing and digital literacy and communication on odd years, and contemporary thought and popular literature on even years, to be able to try to streamline those courses and those electives for kids. And then the change for the English language and composition for grade 11, and grade 12 would be able to receive the, grade 12 is going to be able to get the AP language, literature and composition for grade 12 for AP. So we're going to be able to offer both AP 11 and 12. Digital literacy, I wanted to be able to add in, and communication, because we also know that we're not just evaluating the information that's out there, but we're also, you know, trying to help students navigate how to communicate with all of that digital literacy that's out there. And then once again, the course is offered on odd years, and you see those changes reflected here. Film as literature is going to be removed. It can be incorporated into the other classes instead of being its own designated course. And then here, the changes here. So we're going to be able to publish a newspaper for the community 2 times a year. And the change here is going to be able to, all student ran, they're going to be able to produce the newspaper for the community and shall be mailed home to the district households. And I believe our first publication just came out recently.
So the goal of this was just to restart the newspaper and be able to make connections with families who do not have students in Richmond. And this was really an eye-opener for many people who worked on the bond when we went and talked to members of our community, particularly families who may have had students graduate years ago and have no connection really to the school, or they live in our community and never have had kids in our student school. So we have, this is our first year in this task about doing a newspaper publication. The big picture goal was 4 times, but the reality and the logistics is we're looking at being at once each semester, kind of a mid-year, which is January, and a end of the year. We are evolving with what that content is going to look like for second semester. So Mrs. Shagna, who's the teacher of this course, has really done a remarkable job in getting this started and launched. So one of the things you're going to see in the budget amendment is a line item again for this course, because there is a cost to print, and it is a marketing tool for the district to be able to communicate with families who are not, who do not have students in our district and may not really know what's going on in the district. And so
it was nice to come in this morning. Usually when I come in on a Monday morning and I've got that blinking red voicemail light, I take a deep breath, but I had 2 positive feedbacks already on the communicator that had gone out this weekend and a couple more emails. So Mrs. Shagna, like Mr. Walmsley said, and her students have really taken this and run with it. So they're doing a wonderful job.
We have a class title change for instead of corrective reading, it'd be literacy for life. Corrective reading just has a very negative connotation. Like to be able to promote the lifelong skills of reading there. And then changing reading speed to fluency, language, and vocabulary acquisition, which are as equally important. Blue Crew, having it be grade 9's second semester only. We don't want to track students as they enter grade 9. We want to be able to own in on their academic behaviors and hopefully be able to get a snapshot during semester 1 and then be able to offer that for students that need it in semester 2. The omission of E2020, just not locking into any credit recovery program specifically, but that just we're going to offer a credit recovery availability for students. I don't believe there were mathematic changes. Here we go. Oh, we did have courses just be able to switch titles here. So it looks like that was just a correction to change the titles with these descriptions. Okay. Physical education. We're going to be able to open it up to grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. And just being able to change that 2 days a week, they're going to do circuit training. And then 3 days a week being able to do some team sports, as well as be able to help with their muscular and cardiovascular endurance.
So just as we offer more classes, it doesn't again mean it's going to run, because it is based on numbers. But if you also consider scheduling is like squeezing a balloon, you only have a set number of students. And if more students choose one type of elective or course, that means fewer students are going to choose the other. because you only have a set number of students in the building. If we were any consistent path of gaining, 30, 50 students a year, that'd be a different story because we'd have to add more credit or more classes to place kids in. But if you look at our high school, it's gone up and down and up. Again, we were the only district this year that increased enrollment in Macomb from a public school academy, public school. But if our numbers stay about the same and more kids are choosing PE, the risk we have to look at in the scheduling is there will be less kids in some other program. And that's where really getting kids into the course that they want on the first go around and not forcing them into classes is going to help us, because they're going to want to be in their invested interest. But it may not always be able to we may not be able to run the courses because of numbers.
Okay, personal fitness and conditioning being removed. Body sculpting being added for grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. Sports tech being added in for grade 9. Strength and conditioning for grades 9, 10, 11, and 12.
The two courses, that body sculpting and strength and conditioning, is designed to be a gender specific classroom. So one being for females, one being for males. We are allowed, I did do some research on this. We are allowed to offer in the physical ed environment gender specific classrooms. If there's not, again, enough students in that course, and like every other course, that just course would not run, but we'd still offer it every year in the course catalog, or figure out why students are not electing the course. But the intent is that one class is geared to be female and one class is geared to be male.
Doesn't look to be changes there.
I don't think there's any changes to the dual enrollment, page 109.
Okay.
As Renee's scrolling through that, the participation in the International Academy of Macomb is still part of the selection. So all the budgets going forward, we would present a budget that we would be allocating students that opt to go to that for their high school career. We do get 2 slots per year. Sometimes that can be increased based on if other districts do not, and we have more students selecting it.
There is a change on page 108. With this virtual world that we're in, we really don't want to have students leave campus if they happen to be having a section that is virtual. So. And then ND did change some of their dual enrollment information, and this reflects the most current information.
I believe that's it.
Does anybody have any questions?
So the intent, we will bring this back to you in 2 weeks for official approval. And from there, we will begin the scheduling for the 21-22 school year.
Thank you, everyone who was involved in getting that all together for us this evening. Our next item on the agenda is our budget amendment.
Okay, here tonight to help me out is Tammy. Actually, she's going to be the spokesperson, but in your board packet, you received not only the line items with all the ASNs, and it kind of a thicker package that looks like that, but you also received a summary that shows the actual where we ended last year in 2020, our first original budget that the board adopted in June, This is a kind of a unique year. We adopted or did a first amendment back in, I think it was approved in October, and then we're now on to the second amendment. The document that I'm going to show you on screen is the exact same that you have, except we did page breaks so it'd be easier to see on the screen. And then at the very top of the document, both Tammy and I both missed this. I think it says 1920. We both missed it, so the document's going to say 2021. That's what it is. The one you have is 2021. So let me share the screen, and then I will turn it over to Tammy. It's all yours, Tammy.
All right, thank you, Brian. As Brian said, this is the first section of a long document. The first one is revenues. We have the 1920 actual. We have the original budget for 2021. The center column is the first amendment to 2021 from back in October. And then we have a recommended amendment on the far right for the second amendment. Under local revenues, you can see there's, I'm going to compare the first amendment to the second amendment. So we went from 3,305,000 under the first amendment to 3,258,000 in the second amendment. And basically we adjusted all the local revenues, including like property tax revenues. We reduced childcare revenues because we had a period of closure from November to January. We eliminated Camp Richmond fees. Obviously, we didn't run the program last summer. We'll be running it this summer, so we will not have those fees. Shutdowns. So that decreases about 47,000. Under state revenues, our first amendment, we were projecting. Now you can see we're projecting 11.6 million, which is an increase of just under 500,000. A lot of grants affect that. The first one was the $141,000 in grant we received for the 2019 competitive school safety. We covered most of the cost of the high school door replacement project that we completed in October with that money. We also have a new categorical from the state of 165,000 called 29A, and that is for holding districts harmless that had an increase in enrollment from the effect of the 75-25 super blend that they put in place to help districts not lose funding this year because of coronavirus, and paying the difference in what our regular foundation would have been under the 90-10 blend. So for Richmond, that's a new revenue of 165,000. And it keeps us whole from that 75-25 super blend that they put in place. We also have an increase of about 100,000 in MIPSers, cost offsets and stabilization revenues. And then we have an increase in some of the other state categoricals. So that gives us about a $482,000 increase in state revenues. Federal revenues, there's an even bigger increase. We go from 857,000 to 1,834,000. Again, those are all federal grant revenues. We adjusted our IDEA, Title I, Title II, and Title IV to reflect our current year allocations. Then we have 4 new federal coronavirus revenues that we're receiving. The first one was 189,000, which is the original ESSER formula funds, and we use that to fund about 50% of the high school and middle school counselors. And then we purchased a great deal of personal protection equipment and supplies with that grant. Then we received about 100,000 from Macomb ISD, Macomb County, for their coronavirus relief funds. That was our allocation was 100,000. We used that for cameras that we needed to do virtual learning. We also received 55,000 from the Child Care Relief Fund. We get to use that to offset our costs that we continue to pay child care workers and incur costs even though we were shut down. Then in addition to that, we are obligated to and did give parents a credit of $200 per child that was in childcare in the month of September. So that totals about 14,800 of the 55,000. Another grant that we received is about $12.32 a student, which totals about 18,000 for us. And that's what's called Section 103.2, which is district COVID costs. And we use that for personal protection equipment and supplies again. We received 9,000 in rebates for laptops. We purchased laptops for grades 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And so we received, I think it was $25 per laptop for what we ordered at that time. So that's about $9,000. And last and biggest is the $350 per student, which brings about $510,000 to us in the form of Section 11P coronavirus relief funds. Remember last August, they reduced us by $175 per student. So in this new budget, we received $175 to replace that, plus another $175. And that is still related to coronavirus, and we use that for additional virtual learning equipment. I believe we bought some additional cameras and carts for some of the classrooms. Again, more PPE equipment, wipes, sprayers, cleaning supplies. We did staff training in August for virtual learning and on the back to school roadmap. So those costs that were paid to teachers who came to that training is included in that grant, as well as the COVID-19 building aids and subs that have been here all year to help us handle what we need to do for COVID-19. We had some signage that we purchased to help everyone know where they needed to be, spacing and walking directions in the hallway, et cetera. And then we have additional day of pay for the teachers for doing their virtual instruction. And we also bought those laptops and bags for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades. So all in all, we go about almost $1 million increase in our federal revenues to $1.8 million. Interdistrict sources is money that comes primarily from Macomb ISD. We have tax money for the enhancement millage. They also have shifted how they fund proportionate share for the non-public schools. That used to be through the IDEA grant, and now that is from Macomb ISD, and that provides what we are required to do for speech, social work, and teacher consulting services to the non-publics in our district. And again, that used to be federal revenue. It is now an interdistrict source. So that goes from $645,000 to about $657,000. Our total general fund revenues under the First Amendment was at just under 16 million, and now we are at 17,370,000. When we do the final budget amendment in June, we anticipate we'll have revenues from the 99H First Robotics grant. We've put in the expenditures, but the grant has not yet been awarded. We're expecting around 18,000, and that would be used to fund the K-12 robotics program. There's another source of about 21,000 we're expecting for the MI Connect connectivity reimbursement, and that would be for some of the laptops we purchased for the 9th graders in November. It was too late for the window for the rebate program, but we can use it for the $21,000 for the connectivity grant. The final thing I want to say about revenues is that we've been approved under ESSER 2 for about $429,000, but we don't know when we're going to get that money, and we don't know what it will be able to be used for. Rumor has it might not be available until next school year. It will depend on what the legislature and governor work out. So if we're going to get some of those funds this year, that will impact our final amendment in June. Otherwise, it'll impact next year's budget, or maybe a combination of both. But that's our revenues. I don't know if you have any questions on the revenues at this point. All right, moving along to expenditures. Now we kind of broke these up so it'd be easier to follow. Under basic programs, our first expenditures are for the elementary school. You can see in total, our First Amendment was $2,467,000. It has increased to $2,621,000. There's been adjustments in salaries. You can see salaries went down. We adjusted allocations of staff between buildings and grant programs. So that affects, you can see there's a decrease in salaries, and then there's decreases in retirement benefits, FICA benefits. That you'll see that across the board changes, where if salaries change, those benefits will change as well. And that'll be at the elementary level, middle school level, high school level, preschool, special ed, and so on. We also added in all the buildings pay for virtual instruction and contract obligations for teachers using 0 sick or personal days. We'll also be funding the pay and benefits for the COVID-19 aids. It's a grant, but we have to show the expenditures at each level. So you can see the elementary has some of those salaries as well. When you get down about the 5th line, it's purchase services. We go from 26,200 in the First Amendment to just under 52,000 in the Second Amendment, which is an increase of about 26,000, and that is the cost of the COVID-19 subteacher at Lee. And that is through spring break, I believe.
The substitute teachers, we've committed through the end of the year.
Okay.
Spring break is the COVID building aid, but the way things are going, we more than likely are going to have to keep those till the end of the year.
Okay. I just got it mixed up. So that
Yep,
is to
that's
the
right.
end of the year. Thank you, Brian.
No problem.
Supplies increased from about 40,000 to just under 56,000. And that is, we didn't allocate curriculum costs for the social studies to Lee, but now we've done that in the Second Amendment. And then capital outlay, you can see we expected 6,000 in the First Amendment. We are now up to just under 171,000. That change is the cost of the laptops funded by the 11P coronavirus relief funds, and then the cameras and carts for the virtual learning funded with the Macomb ISD coronavirus grant. So in total, again, we're up about 154,000 in elementary expenditures. Going to middle school expenditures, this time the adjustment for staffing is an increase of about 70,000. We go from 1.3 million to 1.4 million. Our health benefits change, and that usually means someone has shifted what their election is for insurance. We've added the virtual instruction and the obligation for the 0 sick or personal days and the COVID-19 aids under salaries and benefits. When you get to the third from the bottom, purchase services, we go from 20,500 to 72,000, which is an increase of about 51,000. And that again is the 2 sub-teachers at the middle school funded by 11P. There's a small change in supplies. Capital outlay expenditures goes up about 91,000 from 2,600 to 94, and that's the laptops and the cameras funded by the grants. So middle school goes from 2.4 million under the First Amendment to 2.6, almost 2.7 million under the Second Amendment. Under high school, again, there's the adjustment for staff allocations, adding the virtual instruction and this contract obligation, paying the COVID-19 aids under salaries and benefits. When you get to purchase services, we go from about 166,000 to 229,000. And that is an increase in the COVID-19 for the sub-teacher. We also added a new budget item for the high school newspaper class, printing and mailing of the new publication called The Communicator. Under supplies, that goes from just under 60,000 to 73,500, which is an increase of about 13,000. And that's increased for new budget items for the photography 1 and 2 classes and the AP art class. Our goal there is to eliminate the cost paid by the students for the supplies needed for those classes. And then we have the same increase under capital outlay. We went from 63,000 to 150,000 for the 9th grade laptops and cameras. So high school goes from 2,320,000 to just under 2.6 million. Moving on to preschool, we have adjustment for salaries and benefits. Under purchase services, there's a reduction by about 4,600, takes it to 3,000, and that's a change in the GSRP grant for sub-teacher costs. And we're no longer paying for that under the grant. And then capital, well, I guess it was supplies. The food costs, because we had that period of closure, we don't need as much in food costs, so that is also decreased by about 4,000. So preschool expenditures go from 310,000 to about 348,000. Summer school, we have a small amount budgeted, no change there. I will say, Brian, can you go back up to that? That gives us the total basic programs, which is the elementary, middle, high, preschool, and summer school. We go from 7.5 million under the First Amendment to 8.2 million under the Second Amendment. Under special education, we have similar adjustments for adding the virtual instruction in pay and benefits. That goes from 835,000 to about 838,000 for special education. Under Title I and at-risk compensatory education, we have an adjustment for salaries. And again, that's program changes where people are assigned and then adding the virtual instruction. There's a shift in purchase services in the at-risk budget. We go from about 11,000 to 15,000, and that's social worker supplies that came from purchase services. Well, actually, social work supplies shifted to purchase services here. And then under supplies, we go from $3,532 to $15,141, and that's an increase for planned Title I expenditures. We purchased from the 2020 Title I grant that were purchased for Lee Elementary, some teaching supplies. Title I expenditures go from about $455,000 to $526,000.
And just a reminder, part of this increase is we are adding another parapro at the middle school as part of their Title I program. So those salary costs also increase it because we can do it with the carryover in our current allocation. So,
thank you, Brian.
Mhm.
Under vocational education, we have great programs, as we learned tonight even more. Salaries increased slightly, change in benefits. We added the virtual learning, virtual instruction costs. The VOCED is about $400,000 in total. Then when we get total added needs, which is your special ed, your VOCED, your compensatory ed, we went from just under 1.7 million to 1,768,000. And then total instructional expenses, where you add the basic programs and the added needs, we were at 9,204,000 in the First Amendment, and we're at just over 10 million in the Second Amendment. So that's an increase of about 800,000 in instructional expenses. Then we go to support services, starting with guidance services. We had the adjustment for virtual instruction. We go from 239,000 to 245,000. We did not change psychological services. That remains at about 8,000. Moving to speech and audiology services, the similar increase for adding the virtual instruction. We're at 179,000 for speech and audiology, and we're now at about 183,000. And then we have social work, which is partially funded by at-risk. We have salaries were adjusted for the virtual instruction. We did purchase services. You can see went from 27,006 to 35,859, which is an increase of about 8,000, and that's a shift in the Title IV funds for the liaison officer. Later on, I'll explain that something we purchased last year has been shifted to funding the liaison officer this year. And then supplies, we reduced from 4,848 down to 0, and that was part of social worker 31A program shift into compensatory education that I mentioned earlier.
And just a reminder, 1/3 of each social worker is paid out of general fund, 2/3 is at risk. So the general fund funds 1 FTE and 31A funds 2 FTEs, and which allows us to have one social worker at every building. So we've been using that 31A as creative as possible to maximize, their impact on the organization.
So we went from about 298,000 to 311,000, and so we increased social work about 13,000. Then we get to teacher consultant. Again, salaries for adding the virtual instruction, change in insurance election under health benefits. So we started at 264,000 with the First Amendment, and now we're at 275,000 for the Second Amendment. Under other pupil services, you see an increase in salaries. We budgeted for the typical theater program operation. We may have money left at the end of the year, and we can make an adjustment in June if we want to. But that is the cost for the whole year for the salaries and benefits. We increased supplies. That amount was at about 10,000. Now we're at 16,416. And again, as I explained, we don't have the grant revenue, but we did budget for the supplies. So that's an increase in the K-12 robotics grant supplies that we requested in our budget and in our grant application.
So if we don't get the grant, we can still cover the expenses that we normally would budget for robotics. It would just come out of general fund, where normally it would come out of the grant dollars and then our portion of it.
So total other expenditures, the other people expenditures, that includes all of our Schedule B, not just robotics, but it's the play, it's the class advisors, all that stuff. Total other pupil expenditures was at 183,000. It's about 246,000 in the Second Amendment. Total pupil support services, 1,172,000 goes to 1,268,000, which is about a $96,000 increase. Our next category is improvement of instruction. You'll see starting at the top line, salaries go from about 31,000 to 129,000, which is an increase of about 98,000. And that is what we talked about with the Title II and 11P Coronavirus Relief Fund grant costs for training staff back in August for virtual learning and training on the back to school roadmap. So the increase in salaries, FICA retirement. Under purchase services, you can see we started at 52,339 and that has decreased to just over 18,000. And that's a shift in how we plan to spend Title II from having training done here and paying for trainers to just doing the salaries and benefits for the virtual learning and back to school roadmap. So our improvement of instruction with those additional grant funds goes from 105,823 to 222,000. For library, you can see the top line, there's a small decrease in salaries, and that's basically, we had a temporary position vacancies at both Lee and the middle school. This is trying to reflect our actual costs. So we've got reduction in salaries, retirement, and FICA. Total library expenditures are about 70, we're at 70,044 and now just under 60,000.
And I would anticipate going forward into next year's budget, assuming we keep the same program, we would have to increase this amount to accommodate a full year of salaries and benefits for those individuals.
Yes. So under technology, we pay our tech guys their salaries. There's this increase in their salaries. Under purchase services, which is the biggest increase, goes from 82,000 to just under 110,000. And that's an increase in costs for providing hotspots to students for the whole year for virtual learning. And that's all funded by Title I, Title II, and 31A. So that's an increase of about 27,000 in that line item. Total technology expenditures, we had 231,000. We are now up to just over 260,000. In supervision of instructional staff, we started out with a salary about 206,000. That was assuming the curriculum director position for the full year. We've reduced it to just this year, 150,000, and then the corresponding benefit reductions. We did have a change in health insurance under that section. It also includes our special ed director. Those costs go from 354,000 in the First Amendment to 251,000 in the Second Amendment. And we did not make any changes in our academic student assessment. That remains at about 13,000. Total staff support services started at 774,921 under the First Amendment and goes to 806,000 in the Second Amendment.
The academic student assessment, the ISD pays for half of the NWA. So that's our portion of that cost.
Next section, we get to Board of Education. You can see there are no changes. That remains at 59.4 in the Second Amendment. It also includes the executive administration, and we had change in contract and had staff pay increases, and that's reflected in that. We also had a change in staff and insurance election from the original budget. So total executive administration goes from 366 to 417. Total general administration, which includes both the board and the administration, goes from 425 to 476.
Under the board, we would look at the upcoming workshop that would be reflected in the upcoming amendment that increased for that line item. Right now, with the expenses, I don't anticipate. I think we can within that budget cover it, but if we need to increase it, that would come in the Third Amendment, which would be no, as you see in the final bottom line, it's not going to be an issue. So.
Then moving on to Office of the Principal. There's an adjustment in salaries to reflect contract obligation, some changes in staff, and some changes in insurance elections. We also had the corresponding increases in retirement and FICA. Office of the Principal went from 1,221,000 in the First Amendment to 1,225,000 in the Second Amendment. So total, that's our total school administration for the Second Amendment.
And the Office of the Principal includes also the secretaries of the buildings.
Yes. Next section is the business office. Again, there's just the minor adjustments in salaries and benefits for insurance changes. If you look under purchase services, that's the biggest change. That went from 10,950 to 28,950. Increase of 18,000, and that was for postage. What we used to be able to pass out in person, we are mailing. We had postage for virtual learning, and we had postage for virtual meetings that would otherwise not be there. So we'll watch that for the June amendment to see if there's any adjustment needed up or down. Business office expenditures go from 328,000 to just under 340,000. Other business office services, in the next section, there's retirement incentive payments. That decreased from 57,000 to just under 50,000. And that is, we had one individual was paid off last year. So that accounts for that $8,000 decrease. We made some changes in our insurance through SETSAG. And so $600 increase in insurance premiums. Total other business office expenditures went from 208,521 to 204,000. Total business services was at 536,765 in the First Amendment, and now just under 544,000 in the Second Amendment.
So we built the original budget for this one. We did the election expenses based on when we did the bond because we had to pay for that. This being a November election, we really weren't sure what our portion of the final dollars was going to be. So you do see a significant decrease because it was a general election. We didn't have to absorb the majority of the cost.
Right. The only thing we had to pay for was a county fee for printing the ballots in our, that related to our election. That's the 1,051 in that line. Versus having to pay for workers and everything when we put on our own election. When we go to operation maintenance, we will see there are no salaries and benefits at this point because we do that through a purchase service. Purchase services includes our contract with ABM as well as insurance and other costs, any repairs that we have when we hire out someone to come in and do repairs. We hired a plumber, that would be a purchase service. We increased that line from just under 940,000 to 953,000. And most of that is increase in the property insurance. When we did our annual review, we noticed we had some low numbers, so we increased that cost to give us the insurance protection we need. We also had to add the construction insurance for the construction project. That's another part of that cost. Supplies increased by about 125,000. It went from 240,000 to 365,000. And that is all of those grants, the 11P, the ESSER, the 103D COVID grant for personal protection equipment, wipes, sprayers, cleaning supplies, etc. Capital outlay increased about 6,000 to 8,600. And we purchased 5 Clorox 360 machines. 2 of them were not covered by the coronavirus grants. So that isn't reflected under the capital outlay. When it's a federal grant, if it costs less than 5,000, it's a supply. So that's why for the grants, it's under supplies. For our district costs, it's under capital outlay. Total operation maintenance goes from 1,182,000 to 1,327,000. Security services, you can see we had a line item for supplies for 4,397. Under the Title II grant, because we purchased signage last year, we didn't need to redo that again. So that money was shifted up to cost of the liaison officer above. Total operation maintenance is 1,186,984 in the First Amendment and 1,320,000, just under 328 in the Second Amendment. Under pupil transportation, salaries were adjusted to where we think they should be, and then we had some approved pay increases. So they went from just under 410,000 to 431,000. Minor change in health benefits. Obviously, retirement FICA increases when salary increases. The biggest line change as you get to the bottom is capital outlay. It goes from 2,950 to 14,850. It's not the biggest line in that section, but it's bigger than the 3 above. That was replacing old equipment. We needed a new lift, we needed a new power washer, and the copier went kaput. So those 3 items are included in that line. Our total pupil transportation went from just under 751,000 to just over 806,000.
Just to plant the seed with the board, when we talk about copiers, our copiers were put in place in, I believe, 16. So in the series 2 of the bond, we're going to need to start thinking about replacing copiers because they will start nearing the end of their life in the next couple of years. So that was a significant purchase that we took out of the last bond under the technology component. So this was a perfect example. We were looking at what we were paying for I believe it was a laser printer over there, and the amount of ink and so forth was really starting to climb. So it was long-term more, it was beneficial for us to just replace it and put a more cost-effective machine over there to reduce the cost.
Okay, we're getting close to the end. Under support service communication, we had one line there on that page, $2,500. That's part of the GSRP grant, and that was a reduction in that grant. When we hired sub teachers for the GSRP program, we could charge the amount paid to the sub to the instruction line, and then we had to pay the fee that the company that employs the sub, that fee here. And since we're not employing subs in GSRP, we don't need this fee any longer. So that $2,500 went to zero.
And typically the teacher assistant in the classroom is one that steps up to be the lead teacher if there's an absence, and then we backfill that way. So.
Okay, under support services, professional development, we don't have any expenses. We have minor increases in the support service for staff services, going from 13,473 to 16,442. Under support services technical, under purchase services, that went from 18,000 to 39,400. It isn't that we bought that many more software licenses, but there's a change in pricing because of the deal we had when we originally started using that software. Am I explaining that right, Brian?
Yeah, so when we purchased like the copiers and we had the paper cut on it to monitor, that was only for 3 years. And so now we need to start paying that cost to continue it. Or the laptop, so there was a fee that we paid that was part of the original price that we had for several years. We're now starting to have to pay for that fee on its own.
So that's where that around $21,000 increase comes from in that line. So information services expenditures go from 18,000 to 39,008. We have reached athletic services or athletic activities. Salaries are in reflecting all the positions and contract obligations. We have minor change in health benefits. Again, we had change in the secretarial staff, and that changed the health benefit election. Retirement costs were adjusted. Total athletic activity expenditures was around 487,000. It's up about 10,000 to 497,000. Total central services goes from 521,000 to 553,714. Total supporting services, 6,590,000 in the First Amendment to just over 7 million in the Second Amendment. Community education and grants. This is where we provide services to parents. We do under the grants, we changed our planned grant expenditures for the community education. So we're decreasing it from 5,045 to just under 1,500. We also have the custody and care of children, our child care program. As we decreased revenue for when children weren't coming, we also decreased some salaries and benefits. You can see the program overall. Also, we reduced for the Camp Richmond costs. We eliminated the revenue for Camp Richmond, and we have reduced the cost for Camp Richmond down to zero. So that reduced the salaries and benefits and purchase services. Under supplies, other, you can see that went from 1,358 to 15,843, which is a change of about 14,000. That's where that new expenditure line for the Child Care Relief Fund grant that we reimbursed parents that $200 per student in the child care program in September of 2020. That is the line where we record that expense in the grant.
And just a reminder, when we were on virtual, we weren't running childcare, we did reassign childcare to help in the food service, and that salary was then charged in the food service because we were getting the reimbursement for providing those meals. So that's part of the savings too, because it's just charged in a different line item, but yet they were able to stay maintaining their salary benefits.
So total latchkey expenses go from $89,285 to $88,268. In the next section, we have welfare activities. That is where we set money aside under Title I for the homeless. We had set aside $3,500. Realized we didn't need that much. We reduced it down to $1,414 and reduced it by about $2,000. Then for non-public school services, again, this is obligations through grants that we're required to provide speech, social work, and teacher consulting services. Part of it is through Title I. Part of it is also that Macomb ISD proportionate share reimbursement that used to be IDEA grant. So those salaries and benefits, supplies are all part of the grant expenditures. Purchase services increased from $14,605 to $22,147. That's all Title I and Title II expenditures for St. Augustine and St. Peter's schools. Supplies increased from $1,719 to $5,788, which is about a $4,000 increase. And that's their coronavirus supplies that we're required to allocate under the ESSER grant, the original ESSER grant. The new ESSER grant that was just announced, that 400 and some thousand for Richmond, we no longer have to do that allocation. That money will all stay with Richmond. So total non-public school services was at 30,000. It increased to about 50,000. Total community services went from 127,782 to 141,523. And the last page, the top line is capital outlay for facilities acquisition, construction, and improvements. We spent 35,000 last year. We didn't budget anything for this year, except now that we have completed the high school door replacement. It was completed in November under the 2019 Competitive School Safety Grant. That's the expenditure for that project, $158,847.
So if you recall, we received a little over 120,000 in the grant.
141.
Pardon?
141.
141, and so we had to use some general fund to complete the grant and finish it. So, which those doors are very much appreciated because they're now working order.
Yes. So we finally get to total general fund expenses. In the first amendment, it was $15,922,000. Now we're up to $17,315,000. So overall, our expenses increased just under $1.4 million. Again, most of that is the grants. Our general fund excess, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead to the next page, Brian. Our general fund excess, we were pretty much break even with our original budget. We were at $23,943 increasing fund balance with our first amendment. We're now up to $55,000 increasing fund balance in our second amendment, which is a change of about $31,000. Our beginning fund equity, when we closed the books on June 30th, was $725,476. If we add the $55,000 to it, we're projecting our ending fund equity at June 30th of 2021 to be $780,482. If you look at the fund equity percentage and you look across, you can see that even though our fund equity went up, the percentage is actually down to 4.49%. It's a percentage of revenues. Our fund equity is increased about 31,000, where our revenues increased 1.4 million. So that's why that calculation decreases, because the revenues increased. When you go down to the last line, the early warning fund equity percentage, that did increase because most of that revenue increase was restricted grants. So those get taken out of revenues before you divide fund equity by that number. And that's why that went up to 6%. So we're looking good under early warning fund equity percentage at 6%. Great, no, but better. Thank you. Any questions?
I would strongly encourage, because especially those that this is your first budget presentation, if there are any questions, Tammy and I would be more than happy to sit down between now and when you have to approve this in 2 weeks. If there's line items or questions or want to know more details on the dollars, we will be more than happy to sit down and go over it with any board member, but particularly those that this is their first budget presentation.
Thank you for all your hard work, Tammy.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for bearing with me. It's a lot of numbers.
Okay. Tammy, I can't thank you and Judy and Angela pulling the numbers together. You are very detailed, and I think as you see from the actuals to the final to the actual, the final in June to the actual, in the past several years, we have been within just a small percentage of a difference. And so very detailed in the budget and looking for every dollar and dime and nickel and penny and so forth. So thank you, Tammy, and your team.
You're welcome.
Okay, at this point of the meeting, we're at public comments. Any member of the public may address the board. We are asking that you please state your name, and public comments are meant for 3 minutes. So is there any public comments? I see Teresa Ranger. Teresa, go ahead.
I think you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yep.
Good evening, board members. My name is Teresa Ranger. I'm a first grade teacher and also the president of the Richmond Education Association. Joining me this evening is Tim Kudo, executive director from the Michigan Education Association. We're here again this evening to again attempt to clarify the statement that was made by former President Telto, in which she stated that the 3% raise that Mr. Wamsley was given was in line with raises given throughout the district. I made a statement at the January 11th meeting and said, as the president of the REA, I wanted to clarify that we did not get a 3% raise. So first, I would like to again say that the REA members are grateful for the contract that we received. It was, and it remains to be, a great contract. In the most recent contract, we were able to make big movement towards restoring what was taken from our members back in 2009. Next, I would like to thank Mr. Wamsley for his recognition that we are not talking apples to apples. Finally, I would like to thank President Michon for recognizing that our concern was in the word raise. The word raise is defined as an increase in salary. President Michon noted that 11 teachers received restoration, 36 teachers received longevity restoration, and some additional items that we would like to clarify. Teachers teaching on their prep is not a raise. Teachers attending professional development prior to school is not a raise. Therefore, the on average our teachers got a 5.1 increase is not a valid comment. Tim Kudo will now provide some scenarios for you. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. For those board members who are not aware, in 2009, the Richmond Education Association was imposed on by the Board of Education. At that time, all staff members received 5 days of furlough, 2 furlough days and 3 snow days, and a freeze on the negotiated 1% annuity, longevity, and COLA payment. In addition, REA members who held Schedule B positions also received a 20% pay reduction. In addition, over the last 12 years, the state of Michigan increased the number of teaching days. The REA had an additional 3 days added to their work calendar starting in the 2015-16 school year and an additional 2 days in the 2019-20 school year. As a general rule of thumb, each day typically represents about 0.5% or in this case, a cumulative 2.5% in salary that was not realized. The last time a raise was given was in 2008-2009, when 1% was added on schedule in the first semester and another 1%, which is actually a blend, was added in the second semester. Richmond teachers were frozen in steps in the 2009-10, 2011-12, 2013-14, 2015-16, 2016-17 school years. So I'd like to give you an example. Say the average step increase is $2,000. That means a compounded loss of $2,000 since 2009-10. 12 years for just that first 2009-10 freeze is $24,000. Another $2,000 in 11-12 for 10 years is $20,000. Another $2,000 in 13-14 for 8 years is $16,000. $2,000 in 15-16 for 6 years is $12,000. And $2,000 in 16-17 for 5 years is $10,000. For a compounded loss for those teachers of $82,000. In addition to lost steps, an average teacher who's been with Richmond since 2009 has lost approximately $17,000 in wages due to furlough, $8,000 in a 1% annuity, which does not include investment interest, $11,000 in COLA, and finally, a teacher who has reached the top of the salary schedule prior to impasse has lost $17,000 in longevity. You can see why the REA had to come forward on January 11th to clarify that what our members received was not a raise, it was restoration, and not even fully. And we are still not completely restored. We, the REA, are hopeful that the comment made by President Michon, I hope as a board, we can continue to work and strive to work together, making sure our teachers get rightly compensated, holds true as we begin to bargain in the upcoming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Yes, this is Donna Staszewski. I have a comment and a request if I could.
Go ahead, Dawn.
As most of you know, my name is Donna Staszewski and I'm the mother of Nicole Staszewski, who's a sophomore at the Richmond High School. Recently, Thursday, I received a call from Principal Mr. Castle informing me that my daughter had been exposed to COVID and would need to quarantine for 10 days. I was out of town at the time and provided the permission for Nicole to drive home and start quarantine at that time. I found out later through social media posts and other means that it's possible that this individual who exposed my daughter had symptoms prior to notification to the school. I won't get into all the specifics. I can go into that later if asked, but what I'm really looking for from the board because of this, my daughter's chosen to go online, or I'm sorry, in person because the need to be in person. So she's going to be online for the next week, missing classes, missing opportunities, and missing cheer, which has been stressful for her. Because of that, my ask to the school board and to the school is one, to remind parents that their responsibility is to screen their child for COVID symptoms. And if symptoms are present, don't send your kid to school. It's pretty simple. Had that happened in the case of my daughter's exposure, perhaps she'd be attending school in person and practicing with her team and not being quarantined for the next week. And two, if the school board can look at the possibility of implementing a self-declaring process that requires students, employees, and visitors of the Richmond School District to answer COVID health screening questions prior to entering the school. One suggestion to accomplish this would be utilizing an app called Clear to Go. It's where students, employees, and visitors answer predetermined questions set by the school that can be based on CDC guidelines. If they answer no, a check mark comes up that's green, and they can show the screener once they have their temperature taken and enter the school. Third, I would ask the school board at possibly revising the current return to learn plan to include incorporating the CDC's option of a 7-day quarantine instead of a 10-day with a negative COVID test and no symptoms. My daughter had a negative COVID test and has no symptoms, but still has to do the 10-day quarantine. And I understand it's part of the current policy. I'm just asking that it be reviewed. And then last, with COVID testing becoming more accessible and the probability of vaccines on the horizon, I would ask that the school board again look at the plan and see if these things can be incorporated into that plan. I just want to say that I appreciate the teachers, the administration, and the board for all your hard work that you've put into this. I think that maybe there is an opportunity for improvements with everything. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dawn. Are there any other public comments? Brian, do you see any? I don't see anybody else.
Don't see any. I scanned through. I don't see anybody.
Okay.
I don't see any. Dawn spoke.
Right.
I don't see any hands up on the screen, so nope, that's it.
Okay. Okay. Public comments will be over at this time. We will now move on to our superintendent and legislation update.
Okay. I'll start with kind of what Dawn spoke about with the athletics and so forth with the cheer. Last week, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced an update to its current pandemic order, which allowed winter sports to resume on February 8th. Under the order, there's masks that have to be worn during certain practices and competition. If they can't be worn, then they have to be tested for COVID-19. This came out last week, and as of today, there are still unanswered questions as a district that we are receiving. In your online board packet, I did not print it for your the one that we delivered on Friday because we just got them over the weekend, but I did include two emails from the Michigan Department of Health and Human, or excuse me, MHSAA, as well as the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services interim guidance that was received today, just for your information. But I asked Mr. Reinhardt to come speak about what we know for winter sports at this point within the context of the legislative update. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Reinhardt at this time to talk about sports.
Thank you, Brian. As Brian said, last Thursday, the health department and the MHSAA announced that winter sports could begin with some limitations. Contact practices were able to begin today for all contact sports within the winter athletic season. The last 2 weeks or so, we've been running non-contact practices at all levels. The only non-contact sport that we host in the winter is bowling, and they've been practicing for some time and playing with no limitations. Basketball and bowling were able to begin contests today. Wrestling and competitive cheer will begin their competition season on February 12th. That doesn't mean they have to begin on that date. They're just able to start playing games on those dates. As of today, most of our winter sports will be wearing masks even while competing. Wrestlers will be able to take their mask off when they get on the mat, but it has to go back on after the completion of their match. The wrestlers can take their mask off, but they're going to have to complete a negative antigen test prior to each competition. There's still a lot of questions about the testing. We're unsure about what it might look like. We're hoping to get answers soon. State tournament dates have all been pushed back and squeezed into the month of March. We're still waiting on host sites for many of the tournaments. They'll be posted on our Richmond Athletics website as soon as I get more information. At this time, spectators are allowed at games. The MDHHS has suggested that we allow 2 spectators per participant. We're going to follow that suggestion as a league, and all league schools within the Blue Water Area Conference will be following that. If you're not able to attend, I spoke before about the Pixelot cameras. They will be live in the high school gym. The subscription is $10.99 a month or $69.99 for an annual pass. With the subscription, you can watch as many events as you would like to. We will be hosting some of those varsity events at the middle school, and we're going to do the best that we can to broadcast all those home events either on Facebook, or we're going to find a way with the help of Mr. Robbins. I've received several questions regarding spring sports and when they might begin. That's another question mark. If the start date is pushed back, I think that they should be able to compete or complete tryouts before spring break. A date has not been set. That is not a for sure thing just yet. I've had many conversations with the coaches, and they know moving forward that we're day to day. The information I'm giving you now could be old news tomorrow. I know this is a lot of information. Do you have any questions about any information that I've provided so far? This is the newest information. We just got an email from the MHSAA at 4 o'clock, and I added some of that information into this piece.
Before you ask questions, I just want to point out, here's a perfect example. We get an email today that says tomorrow you can order from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services the tests. There's no guidance on how the tests are administered, who administers anything logistically that has to take it on. So this is literally evolving, I would say hour by hour, and we're taking our information directly from what we receive from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and MHSAA. We're not going by with hearsays and so forth. When we get the actual stuff in writing, we'll follow the plan so that we can have all of our students participate to the best of our abilities, given the parameters that have been given to each district. But there is a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of questions, and things are evolving. Any questions on sports before I continue?
I do. Chris, one easy one and one maybe hard one. For the being able to watch the games, will that be on the website for the people, to find out how to go about purchasing? Because I know there's interest out there.
I'll add a link tomorrow on the Facebook accounts. I'll put it on the Twitter and the Instagram account so that you can just click on the link and it'll take you right to the website where you can purchase the subscription.
And Chris, work with Eric to put it on the district's website so that those that don't have Facebook or Twitter or any of those, they can also go there so they can go right to the link.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks. The other one?
And then Chris, when you said about the for wrestling, for each competition, they have to take the test. So you're saying right here now it's February 8th, and they could start on Friday, but you don't know if they have a match on Friday. We don't know as a district yet how they're going to get those tests, who's going to administer the test to them, and who's paying for those tests. Correct?
Yes. We're actually pretty lucky, and our season's not starting till February 20th. So we have some time before our first competition, but we could start the 12th.
Okay. And then for our basketball teams, girls and boys, they're starting this week, I believe, our game starting this week. So they're wearing masks because there was talk, there was information out there about possibly the tests were for wrestling, but they might provide tests. But right now we're just working with, they've got to wear the masks, and we're just waiting to see, because possibly they may provide tests for those sports as well. Correct? That's a word on the street, if you will.
That was clarified in the 4 o'clock email that Mr. Walmsley and I got today. They'll be wearing masks. They're not going to do testing. The reason being, if one team is able to test and another team that they're competing against is not. They don't want that competitive advantage.
Okay, I see. Okay. Okay,
They just want someone to drop dead on the floor because they can't breathe.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
Sounds.
So even if there was interest out there to provide the funding for the tests for our athletes, it's not going to work because MHSAA and the health department say no, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Are we allowed to have middle school sports, or is this just apply to high school sports?
No, high school and middle school sports are starting this week. We're finishing up with the middle school. We're finishing up our winter one season, which includes girls basketball and wrestling that started way back in November and has been pushed back. So we're finishing up their season, 5 games for the girls and 2 wrestling competitions. And then we'll move into the boys basketball and cheer season, which they'll start tryouts at the end of this month.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Other legislative updates along with that, that pandemic order that was amended. There's been conversation, it's actually on tonight's agenda regarding the ability for school boards to meet in person. Right now, we're not. I know the Michigan Association of School Boards has sent a letter to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Director, Elizabeth Hertel, requesting that boards be able to meet as soon as possible, but as of right now, no. Tammy talked about this earlier last week. The House passed the Republican plan to appropriate the federal funds that you may have seen in the paper, that $424,000 for Richmond. On Thursday, it was passed. It's House Bill 4048, which contains a plan on how to appropriate the COVID-19 dollars that was passed by the U.S. Congress in December. The bill was passed along party lines by a 58-51 vote, and it included a tie bar to the House Bill 4049, which puts limits on the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services pandemic oversight. In a nutshell, it puts the local control over the decisions of much of what we've been dealing with the emergency orders at the local health department level based on the guidance that the legislators put in place. It's kind of a broad summary. Obviously, in the legislation, there's a lot more details, but our concern is, I spoke just a small piece. The dollars we have been very strategic in how we spent them. We have been very cautious on making sure we have enough PPE, cleaning supplies, mechanical. We were on the forefront of most districts in buying early, but those funds are now exhausted. And so we have a certain point where we're going to have to start using general fund to finish out the year. For instance, the COVID-19 aids, they play a critical part in keeping us in person, a very valuable part. And so, my recommendation as we get closer, if we don't hear anything, we figure out the dollars to put in to keep them through the end of the year so we can finish on a good note this year, as much in person as possible. There's dollars that in this package that the House approved, and I'll just read a couple. There's $99 million allocated for summer school programs for K-8 to address the learning loss because of virtual. Richmond is in a better place than most districts because we've been virtual pretty much in person from day one. There are some districts that are just now coming back and haven't been in the school since last March. And so, our kids do have an advantage. And, at this point, I need to thank the team here, everybody from the board down to the custodian, everybody in between, because it was a team effort to do this. There's $11 million to look at benchmark assessments to see where we can help kids out. There's another $20 million allocated for teachers to teach summer school programs. There's $10 million allocated for parents and guardians to help pay for summer school programs. There's another $363 million in a per pupil allocation for the district to compensate districts who have been fully in person 5 days a week and to get the incentive for them to be. It's going to be challenging because with all bills with dealing with school and the budget, it becomes a political potato with us in the middle. You may have heard recently the state superintendent testified between the House and Senate Joint Committees on Education about increasing the number of school days beginning next year. Though that was stated, his follow-up comments to that was, you can't ask people to do it for free. So if there are increased work days, you need to increase the compensation. We'll see where that goes in the legislature and so forth regarding that. There's been hearings this past week on mental health and the impact of COVID-19 and the shutdown and keeping kids at home or virtual with no option of in-person, what that's done. Testimony with increased suicide rates. We are fortunate to have a social worker in every building, and they are three of the best social workers in working with mental health issues that our students are facing every day. At the national level, there was testimony regarding the U.S. Secretary of Education before Congress. President Biden's Secretary nomination, Miguel Cardona. He was formerly from Connecticut. What he says is very positive from a school perspective. It's all about investing in our schools and our students. Without getting any politics, our last Secretary of State really didn't look out for public education. So it is a refreshing and optimistic that we have someone who is from public education, who's an advocate of public education and willing to speak on behalf of the needs of public education. As a district update, I'll be honest, I didn't have a chance to redo the video and Rich, but I realized I don't think I spoke about the food service and when we were shut down virtually. And I want to thank the cooks, the bus drivers, the childcare workers who are reassigned, Mrs. Guinea, Mrs. Dobbs, and Mrs. Shad for their work. We served in that month we were shut down from Thanksgiving to right after the first of the year, over almost 28,000 meals to our kids that we bused and delivered those meals while we were virtual. That's a lot of work and a lot of coordination, a lot of time and effort. And that team that I spoke of, the cooks, the bus drivers, the childcare who were reassigned, et cetera, they did a phenomenal job. And I want to thank them for their work on that aspect. You heard from Mrs. Aries, the communicator. This is what it looks like. If you didn't receive it, it should be coming in your mail. I received several email compliments. It is written by our student newspaper, and it's designed to provide our community, particularly families who do not have connections to Richmond, an outlet of what's going on, updates on the bond project. Mrs. Shagna, first year in the high school, first year doing the newspaper. I couldn't be more proud of her. She took this by the horns and ran with it. We met the other day and we're going to make some improvements, kind of lessons learned from the first episode or the first edition. But it's really remarkable what we were able to produce and get out there. I received an email from Mr. Keith Reingert from the Lions Club, and he, former Richmond alumni, and he just was very positive about, very proud to be a Richmond alumni, reading about what our students did. So I think it's going to be good for the community and keeping those that, particularly again, do not have connections to the district, update them on what's going on in the district. Coming up, we have kindergarten roundup. The class of 2034 will be joining us on March 11th. With everything going on, we will be doing a virtual kindergarten roundup. So we are being, Mr. Koshin, Mrs. Napier, and Renee have been really focusing on being very creative how we do this. That's a Thursday, March 11th. On Wednesday, March 10th, we will be welcoming the class of 2035 and 2036, our 3- and 4-year-old preschools, for doing a virtual roundup. We will, in the next couple of days, actually week, I should say, there will be the traditional postcard mailer that goes to every household. We'll be putting information on Facebook. We'll be sending it through school messenger to families to get the message out about Roundup. One of the things that I am extremely proud of that we are launching beginning this year with the registration is we are moving to online registration. There pretty much would be no need for parents to physically have to come in and do everything. We are going to 100% virtual registration or online registration, excuse me, where parents have the ability to register their student when it's convenient for them, whether it's on lunch during their work hour or in the evening after they get the kids to bed. They can sit down and fill out the online registration. Basically, the process is a parent will fill out an enrollment interest form. That goes to Mrs. Daly, who then verifies the stuff that's in there. At that point, once she rolls it over into the system, the parent will receive an email to create a parent portal account if they don't have one already. If they do have one, to have them log into their current parent portal account, and all the registration forms will be in there that they can fill out. They have the ability to upload documents, birth certificate, residency papers, and all that goes to Mrs. Daly. So we're saving a lot of time and effort on the data entry and getting it in. Schools will be able to see at the building level the status of enrollment, so they can so as we're doing staffing, how many kindergartners have we got registration packets completed? How many 3- and 4-year-olds, so we can staff courses appropriate. It's exciting because this has been a focus of mine to get there, just to provide another option for parents who coming into school during school hours is challenging, especially if you're a working parent. This does not eliminate, if a parent still wants to do something in person, we're not turning them away, but it provides more options for families to do registration virtually. The bigger picture on this is all the forms that we send out at the beginning of the year, the update your telephone and so forth, can now all be done through PowerSchool. It can be looked at by the clerk and automatically updated. So the data entry and getting that updated is going to be much more expedited. If you can picture the first week of school getting 500, maybe 400 student registration cards with change of email addresses and so forth, it takes a lot of time for secretaries to enter that information. This will expedite it and get the most recent information in there as quickly as possible, particularly health information. I do want to thank Mrs. Daly. She's taken the reins on this. This is a huge learning curve for her. But I think in the big picture for the district, this is going to be a 3 steps forward in our movement to providing parents the customer service and access to our school outside of the traditional school hours that they need, especially our working parents. Finally, at the last board meeting, the board directed me to meet with the city, reach out to the Richmond Historical Society. I have done that. I will be forwarding the board communication from the Richmond Historical Society. Their communication is, and I talked to the current president of the Richmond Historical Society, Mr. Graham. Excuse me. They are all in favor of keeping the building to support their mission, but from a financial aspect and being able to support, they are very limited. They see the historical value in the building as a community. As far as the city, I met with city manager, Tammy and I met today with Mr. Moore and the Parks and Recreational Director, Margot. We had a lot of conversation. We're going to be scheduled. We exchanged some information that I'm going to be providing them. We're going to set up a follow-up meeting. There is an interest in trying to create a partnership here. But again, as we are limited with resources, they have also limitations, but they are looking to be creative in how we do some things. So within the next couple of days, I'll be sending an update to the board, kind of here's where we're at, to keep you involved in the process, and some options that have been discussed or that will be discussed moving forward. And ultimately, it will have to come back to the board with some further discussion and direction on how we want to handle this. But we have moved forward with it. The last group that I'm going to reach out to is the church regarding their current lease and kind of their interest, et cetera, just as a third, because they're currently using the building. So, and that was part of the conversation with Mr. Moore today regarding, we're not looking, at least as a collective group, not looking to kick people out, but is there a way to create some partnerships among maybe not only the city and the school, but the possibly the church too. So more to come, but we are moving forward, and we've had our initial conversations, and I will be coming back very soon with some more conversations regarding that. With that, I know I probably spoke really fast, so I apologize, but that's it for my update.
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. Right now we have interest from the board. Mrs. Pasito, is there anything from you?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Shoeboy?
All set, thanks.
Mr. Simmons?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Sutton?
Good.
Mrs. Telto?
Good.
Mrs. Zuby? Oops. Unmute.
No, nothing tonight.
And then for myself, I just want to let the board know and the public know that I did complete the workshop on fundamentals of being a board member through MASB. And I'm also getting scheduled for the board member workshop or board president workshop that they are providing. No other comments from our board at this time. We're looking for action items. We have the first one is I'm looking for a motion for the purchase of a school bus.
This is Michon. Before you begin, we have Mrs. Shad just popped in. The package that we are looking for, and I don't know, I'll have to look through the how this happened, but give me a second here. We are actually looking at purchasing from Midwest, not Holland. And I apologize for that. Midwest is not the lowest, but we have been purchasing from Midwest for several years. And when you look at the backup documentation, they are, you'll see the comparison, and then really you look at the last page, which is the bottom line dollars. The lowest is 93,182. Midwest is 93,708. So we're talking to, $500-ish difference. That is the recommendation. So if you would just switch out Midwest, obviously though, if the board wants to go with the lowest, they have that price, but the request was to go with Midwest, and I got to look at why that happened. So I apologize.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for a motion for the purchase of the bus from Midwest.
A motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the purchase of one school bus from Midwest Transit for a total not to exceed $93,708 as outlined in the attached documentation.
Do you need to read the rest of it, Kyle? Yeah.
It's authorized under the bond.
You need to finish it, Kyle.
Oh, sorry, I didn't go on my other page. This project is also authorized in the application for preliminary qualification of bonds approved by the Michigan Department of Treasury and the voters of Richmond Community Schools, for which funding from the 2020 school building and site bonds series 1 is authorized.
Do I have a support?
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Deb, you have to do it as a roll call because of the dollar amount.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's start back then. We'll start off. Angela?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Danielle?
Aye.
Margaret?
Aye.
Sherry?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution to permit the school board to meet in person.
Is it all read? I'll read it all if you need it all read.
we need it all read? The whole resolution?
A motion to approve the following resolution, whereas the school districts have been strongly encouraged to begin offering in-person instruction by March 1st, 2021, and each local school board has a responsibility to make that ultimate decision for their school district. And whereas Richmond Community Schools has worked diligently to prepare for and implement the return to in-person learning for all students in grades pre-K through 12 and post-secondary. And whereas all students and staff are permitted by the state of Michigan, including the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, to attend school in person. And whereas the members of the school boards are the only individuals within their school districts who are not permitted to meet in person. Whereas requiring school boards to meet virtually while encouraging students to attend school in person and for staff to work in person sends a mixed message to our community and staff. And whereas Richmond Community Schools would like the ability to meet in person with strong health and safety mitigation measures in place that are consistent with measures taken for all of their school classes and activities. Now, therefore, be it resolved, Richmond Community Schools request that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and the governor allow school boards to have the option to meet either virtually, in person, or a combination of the two beginning immediately.
Do I have a support for this motion?
Or
Any discussion?
Yeah, Deb, what's our plan if we get to have our meetings in person and there's all of the regulations and stuff kind of similar to what they just did for sports? What's our plan?
Well, first off, we would need to know what the guidelines are going to be. We have already done it in the fall, as far as taking the temperature, putting the questions out. I think the piece that I know in talking with Mr. Walmsley, we're concerned about the time for setup and stuff like that. So we're going to have to determine, can we do something different in that place and maybe not have the full video and stuff like that. So Margaret, I think until we know exactly what they're going to require of us, I think we plan on doing what we did in the fall.
Okay. All right. I hate the virtual meetings. Deb, we had that conversation.
Yes.
And I think it's much more efficient to do it in person. But I just think that personally for me, that the resolution is a little, unless we know exactly, because it was difficult when we did that. We wanted to do it in the fall and it was difficult to do. So I just think a resolution right now just doesn't work for me, especially for what just happened with athletics. But I would like to come back in person.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Does the resolution, it's still based on what the guidelines are. So even if we approve the resolution, it's just basically saying that we want to get back in person when it's at all possible.
That's all possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Correct? Is that what I'm to understand the resolution is about? Just that we desire to be in person?
That is correct, Sherry.
Okay.
My understanding was just, it's a way to put our voice out there to the governor and to the state, say, hey, we just need to do this, because telling everybody else in the district to go back, but they're not letting us. Our hands are kind of tied as much as we want to.
Sort of in the same way, wasn't there a resolution where we asked that they supply districts with funds to cover all the COVID costs or something to that matter? Earlier in the year, similar thing. I forgot.
I don't remember doing that, but I don't know off the top of my head.
We did do a resolution. I remember that. I just don't remember exactly.
I'm going by memory, so I may be low. I believe there was a resolution when they were looking at cutting us $700 per pupil in the spring to not cut us.
Right.
I'd have to look back, but I think there was something that we did when we had to approve the original budget, because we didn't, at that time, we were looking at a $700 plus per cut per student.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, as there is no other business, we will adjourn this evening at 9:39. I just want to thank everybody for all their work in getting this together.